But I just wondered, in your experience and in dealing with polling, what happens when a principal, an official, or a president, or a candidate doesn't like what you're doing? And are there cases where you've given advice and the candidate rejects it? What do you do then? Maybe we'll start with Ed this time.
Move on to the next issue.
Yeah.
Ultimately, when you talk about actually the president, when the
Right.
president makes that decision, the decision is made. And again, you're only one of many advisors.
Right.
You only have one piece of the talent that is needed for putting everything together, much like was mentioned earlier. Have all of us probably faced that? Absolutely, at all levels. I mean, they can happen, quite frankly, with someone running for sheriff looking at polling as easily as someone running for president of the United States. I think the one thing I have found over time, though, is that because you have the book, you have the numbers in your hand, it is a different type of discussion in terms of what you're seeing. That yes, there's some interpretation to it, but there's also some irrefutable part of what you're discussing that helps bring at least to a standpoint of kind of a mutual discussion, as opposed to I either believe it or I don't believe it.
Yeah, my experience, and I'll try as much as possible to use President Clinton for it. My experience is that the candidates or the president will sometimes have whole areas where we will totally ignore what you do, that are just off bounds, or just if he decides for various reasons not to have it. He will empower you when it's in his interest to use you. So I'll give an example. So when we ran for president on an economic plan, the economy is stupid. We had a plan. It was full of investment, centered on education. The moment we got in, it became evident that we had deficit reduction was going to be the absolute priority. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, and what happened in the period of about a month was that the president agreed to caps in spending that essentially gutted his whole investment package, and for basically for 3 years he was not going to be able to invest in education. Now he made that decision with the economic team. There was never any. This is a candidate who ran his entire life on the concept of investing, educating. That's where he uplifted people. That's where that was being a New Democrat. That was how he created opportunity. His lifeblood was education. He gave it up. Decided the right thing for the country was to proceed with deficit reduction. Never pulled it. Just never. Never. We polled how to then make the case. Then you were re-empowered. How to make the case for this new plan. But the big decision on what the level of deficit reduction, which is whether you had any investment whatever in your budget, was done without any polling, whatever. And so there are moments when he would empower you, and there's moments when he would disempower you. He would pay attention to the results, and they impacted him, but he wanted you to be effective in those areas, and there are other areas where he ignored you altogether.
Mm-hmm.